Colonel Potter, sir, my last wish is to be buried in my mother's wedding gown.
I've seen these Dodgers for 40 years, all the tricks. Dismissed!
They look like a family on screen, laughing and saving lives while making television history, as part of one of the most successful shows of all time, MAS*H. But behind the scenes, things were not exactly scripted that way. The cast brought humor into 200+ million homes across America. Unfortunately, not many fans were privy to simmering tensions, quiet departures, and unexpressed frustration that began to build long before the final episode aired. Days before Loretta Swit, the beloved Major Margaret Hot Lips Houlihan, died, she had the opportunity to finally speak up after years of silence. Out of loyalty and love for her co-stars, she revealed everything. Her words painted a picture of why these personal struggles and dramas behind the scenes caused some of its big names to walk away while it continued to be top tier. MAS*H, the show that made history, wasn't just a television series. It was groundbreaking. This iconic CBS television series that could be seen between September 17, 1972 and February 28, 1983, took the real-life turmoil of war and combined it with comedy in a way that had never been done before. It was based on the film MASH** in 1970, adapted from the 1968 novel MASH, a novel about three Army doctors** by Richard Hooker. The story, of which there were many, centered on a group of doctors and the support staff. MAS**H is set in Wjeongbu, South Korea, during the Korean War, and tracks the struggles they endured on a daily basis, from desperately working on wounded soldiers to grappling with issues such as heartache and homesickness. Sometimes it was pure absurdity. The brilliance of the show was that it could make you laugh one moment and tear up the next. It wasn't just about war, it was about being human. The original cast was loaded with memorable characters. Alan Alda starred as the sharp-tongued surgeon Hawkeye Pierce, and Wayne Rogers was his charming partner Trapper John. Loretta Swit melted our hearts as the strong and complicated head nurse Major Margaret Hot Lips Houlihan, and Larry Linville was the uptight Frank Burns. McLean Stevenson was the easy-going Colonel Henry Blake. Gary Burghoff was the innocent and quirky Radar O'Reilly. Jamie Farr was the cross-dressing Klinger, and William Christopher was the gentle chaplain Father Mulcahy. And while the series continued, cast changes took place. When Wayne Rogers left, Mike Farrell stepped in as B.J. Honeycutt. After McLean Stevenson left the show, Harry Morgan joined as Colonel Sherman Potter. After Larry Linville departed the show, David Ogdenstier stepped in as Charles Winchester, the snooty but lovable doctor. And when Radar left the show, Klinger became the company clerk. Each new cast member was unique, and while there were many changes, the spirit of MAS*H remained strong. One added element of magic is that many episodes were based on true stories from doctors who served in the Korean War. Alan Alda was involved in writing and directing some of the episodes, which no doubt helped create that personal touch. MAS*H became one of the most beloved TV shows in history, and its last episode, Goodbye, Farewell and Amen, aired in 1983. It achieved remarkable accolades. It was the most-watched TV episode in the history of U.S. television, and that title wasn't broken for decades afterward. Funny, heartbreaking, and unforgettable, MAS*H transcended mere television. It was a part of people's lives. Loretta Swit's journey. Loretta Swit, the woman who would one day become TV's unforgettable Hot Lips Houlihan, was born November 4th, 1937, in Passaic, New Jersey, to a Polish-American family. Her parents, Lester and Nellie Swit, were hard-working people raising their two children, Loretta and her older sibling Robert, 6 years older. Her father was a salesman and upholsterer, and even as a child, Loretta was animated, charming, and energetic. She joined the Girl Scouts with her local church, Holy Rosary RC in Passaic. She attended Pope Pius XII High School and forgot about being shy. Loretta was a cheerleader, performed in school plays, and co-captained the girls' basketball team. Upon graduating in 1955, she attended the prestigious Catherine Gibbs School, first in Montclair, where she graduated in 1957. Like a lot of girls of the time, she had clerical positions for her early jobs: stenographer, secretary for socialite Elsa Maxwell, and a secretary for the Ghanaian ambassador at the UN. But behind all the paperwork and typing, Loretta had another dream. She was secretly training as a dancer with a Rockette friend, and she was taking acting classes in New York at Gene Frankel's studio, the coach with whom she would continue to study for many years. Loretta was also getting singing lessons at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, all of which would one day set her up for a diverse career in, well, entertainment. Loretta began acting through theater. Loretta's first job off Broadway was in An Enemy of the People, and by 1961, she was doing a balcony at the famous Circle in the Square Theater. She worked steadily in theater throughout the 1960s and 70s, touring with plays like Any Wednesday and performing with greats like Don Rickles and Ernest Borgnine in The Odd Couple. In 1975, she starred in Same Time Next Year on Broadway and kept a steady stream of her talented work, coming with productions like The Mystery of Edwin Drood and left her mark in Las Vegas with Mame. Loretta was always working. From the 1990s into the 2010s, she repeatedly put on the one-woman play Shirley Valentine and appeared in other productions like Amorous Crossing and 6 Dance Lessons in 6 Weeks. In 1969, Loretta headed to Hollywood and soon enough got guest roles on shows like Hawaii Five-0, Gunsmoke Mission, Impossible, and Mannix. What none of them knew at the time, TV history was right around the corner. The woman behind Hot Lips, Loretta Swit, made a splash in TV history stepping into the shoes of Major Margaret Hot Lips Houlihan on MAS*H. The show was a blend of comedy and drama set during the conflict of the Korean War, and Swit's character was one of the most watched. Initially, she took the role on from actress Sally Kellerman, who portrayed Houlihan in the original 1970 MASH* movie, but Swit made her role as well. At the beginning of the show, she was all tough, strict, and very patriotic. There weren't any characters that she got along with the exception of Frank Burns, one of her secret lovers, played by Larry Linville. The two made an awkward pair, often engaging in ridiculous, awkward, and often toxic moments. But as the series expanded and matured, and perhaps Swit herself did as well, Margaret gradually became more rounded and more likable as a character. She married a lieutenant colonel, although it didn't last long. But after marriage was over, she began to develop genuine friendships with her fellow doctors and nurses and started to show compassion and understanding toward the local Korean people surrounding the camp. These were really all part of the transformations MAS*H the show was going through as a series, from almost entirely absurd dark comedy to a mixed bag of humor and real human emotion. Loretta Swit was one of only 4 actors to stay on MAS*H through all of its 11 seasons, along with Alan Alda, Jamie Farr, and William Christopher. She and Alda were the only 2 cast members to appear in the very first episode of the series, and the very emotional finale. And from the 256 episodes of MAS*H, Swit appeared in all but 11 of them. Her time on the program was certainly acknowledged. Swit received 2 Emmy Awards for her stunning and emotional performance. When she was asked which episodes were her favorites, she mentioned Hot Lips and Empty Arms, Margaret's engagement and the nurses, which provided much more personal backstory for her character. Equally important to her was the strong friendships built off-screen among her castmates. Among them was Harry Morgan, Colonel Potter. After the show ended, Morgan and Swit were neighbors and remained so until Morgan died in 2011. She did remain very close to Alan Alda and also continued to connect with his extended family, including his wife, daughters, and grandchildren. Loretta Swit was not just an actress prototypical of a particular role. She was a television actor that defined an era. Behind-the-scenes drama, MASH* may have been a fan favorite for its humor and heart, but behind the scenes, things were not always as bright. During its 11 seasons, the show lived through a fair amount of cast drama, creative differences, and behind-the-scenes friction, especially when it came to screen time and ownership of the show's direction. Alan Alda, the well-loved Hawkeye Pierce, wasn't just a lead. The character gradually became the heart and soul of the show as the seasons went on. He not only acted but also performed a lot of writing and directing of individual episodes. Like all things, too much of the main ingredient, Hawkeye, Porter was uncomfortable in what was becoming more of a one-man show and made it impossible to focus on the developing drama of the series. Co-stars Wayne Rogers, who played Trapper John, and McLean Stevenson, who portrayed Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake, Both departed the show as their frustrations mounted, with Alda assuming more screen time and influence. Rogers, who initially signed up as part of an ensemble cast, noted the experience lost its ensemble feeling. The writers were creating a much more politically aware drama, and Rogers' character was being relegated to less and less screen time. Rogers studied MASH asterisk in later interviews and considered that it was becoming the adventures of Hawkeye Pierce. It wasn't just the actors that were strained. Writers and cast members sometimes had conflicts, especially over changes to the script and creative direction. For example, writer Ken Levine once recounted how the writers made an episode that took place in freezing cold weather just to keep the cast too disoriented to argue about their lines. While he told this as a playful anecdote, it reflected the real push and pull behind the scenes between the writers who were developing the story and the cast who were delivering it. Loretta Swit was also in the middle of many of these tensions. In later interviews, she spoke about the emotional labor in keeping the peace with the cast. Swit was not just acting. She often became the peacemaker off camera. Although she rarely elaborated, Loretta indicated that MASH asterisk wasn't always a pleasant environment, so making sure the team was functional required some managing beyond just work and lines. Why McLean Stevenson left. McLean Stevenson's exit from MASH asterisk in 1975 caught many fans off guard. He was a charming Colonel Henry Blake who brought a genuine sort of middle-American feel during the disarray of the Korean War. But Stevenson started to become frustrated with part. He said publicly that he wanted more growth, an opportunity to expand outside the vapor. Cast note that it wasn't just career-driven. Several offstage accounts suggest that here was a man frustrated with being tied down to one character. A succinct summary by a Reddit user captures the essence of this. The basic reason was ego. Henry Blake was a popular character, and McLean mistook the love we had for Blake as love for him as an actor. I thought everybody in America loved McLean Stevenson. Everyone loved Henry Blake. Stevenson began to feel uncomfortable and aggrieved at the undesirable visibility of a character while the show grew in easy, massive popularity. In 1990, he was to state in an interview that he regretted moving forward as he realized the following, that the audience's relationship was not with him. It was with a character exclusively. He said, "I made the mistake of believing that people were enamored of McLean Stevenson when the person they were enamored was Henry Blake." Loretta Swit, who knew him well, surmised another time that he felt sidelined and unappreciated as part of an ensemble. Swit remained loyal to the show and watched for 11 seasons as the dynamics changed. What a dramatic end his departure turned out to be. His character's off-screen death in the episode Abyssinia. Henry is certainly one of the biggest television shocks ever. Fans were devastated. And Stevenson later embodied the moment's emotional power when he explained that he thought he might come back occasionally, but he also understood the show would not stop for him. It is clear that Stevenson's departure was not only a pursuit of professional pursuits and ambition. It was about pride, restlessness in feeling neglected on a fast-moving show, and an aspiration to explore his own creativity as the show continued to change and evolve. While the way Henry Blake left was shocking to audiences, it continues to show the reality of actors grappling with their characters' identities, stripping elements of the actor's own identity. Wayne Rogers' departure. Wayne Rogers ditched MASH asterisk after the third season in 1975, and the reason is almost comically simple. He wasn't getting the proper attention given to him for his character. When Rogers signed on, he thought Trapper John would be equal to Hawkeye. As the show was developed, it became abundantly clear that the de facto star was Alan Alda, who took character attributes, narrative, and scene away from Rogers in episodes. His manager told the Cincinnati Enquirer that Wayne was tired of living in his co-star Alan Alda's shadow. The producers weren't necessarily aggressive TikTok followers, though they indicated Rogers still appeared in most every scene. Rogers believed that his character was a supporting role and not the second main lead. Additionally, Wayne learned that the character Trapper John, who was supposed to be the lead author of the Keytop thoracic surgeon in the film and book, was being stripped of the title. Hawkeye was taking over storylines, including technical medical storylines, which belonged to Trapper. It had become increasingly likely that Hawkeye was becoming the lead character in the show, and Wayne did not want to be sidelined. There was also an ongoing contract dispute behind the scenes. Wayne wanted both more creative control and to be paid more fairly. He left behind a hit show and created his own sitcom, and created his own successful life outside of acting not long after, which indicates Wayne was ready for something different. In the end, Wayne and Alan remained friends. Alan gave a lovely eulogy at Wayne's funeral, so at least we know their split was limited to professional. It was not personal. But for Wayne Rogers, the balance was never realized, and he left MASH asterisk at what was still a height of success. Why Larry Linville walked away from Frank Burns. Larry Linville had played Major Frank Burns on MASH asterisk for 5 years, but in the middle 1970s, he felt he couldn't continue to develop the character. Burns was a pompous, stuffy-foiled Hawkeye and Trapper, a one-dimensional bad guy. That was okay for a time, but Linville saw something that bothered him. His character was simply not changing. He was sick of playing someone who never developed or evolved. Later, in an interview, Linville explained, "I had done all I could with that character, conceding he'd gone as far as he could with Frank Burns." As Season 5 concluded, Linville's 5-year contract had expired. Though the producers wanted to extend it for 2 years, he refused, desiring creative latitude more than being typed into a caricature. He already knew that his abilities would be better spent in other roles. Besides, he didn't wish to be remembered as merely that guy who played Frank Burns. In retrospect, even his co-stars admired his choice. On screen, Frank was a target of jokes, but Linville himself was popular and renowned for his professionalism and bravery to leave behind. Frank Burns' off-screen exit was identical to the way that the character left the story, quietly discarded and never glanced back. Linville continued to work steadily with guest appearances on such shows as The Rockford Files and Chips during the late 70s, proving that he wasn't a one-role actor. While Frank Burns is one of television's most memorable villains, Linville's decision to leave was spurred by a need for depth, maturity, and to be more than his character would ever be. Gary Burghoff's exit. Gary Burghoff's departure from MASH asterisk following Season 7 in 1979 was due to 2 primary reasons: personal issues and backstage tension. Personal problems were first on the agenda. Burghoff was close to 40 by the end of the show, still playing Radar, a naive young high school age clerk. Burnout was in effect. Boff has since attributed filming as being grueling and requiring a timeout to spend more time with his family. Family, he said, was the most important thing to him, since juggling his role with being a father was really getting to him. Aside from individual exhaustion, there had been tension on set, particularly between Boff and some of his co-stars. During a 1983 biography of Alan Alda, it was mentioned that Burghoff and McLean Stevenson had at one point engaged in a serious shouting match, and Wayne Rogers allegedly got so angry he hurled a chair at Boff. Even though he played Radar, one of the most fondly remembered characters, Boff wasn't necessarily the easiest guy to work with. Some staff and crew admired his professionalism, but others complained of his contentiousness. Nonetheless, people distinguished between Radar and Burghoff, loved the character but had difficulty with the actor's off-camera attitude. In the end, whether the leave came down to a combination: individual burnout from a demanding show and a need to rejoin his family, as well as increasing tension in the proximity of the camp environment. Boff's last episode, Goodbye Radar, resonated that same complexity, a scene to pay homage to his character on an emotional level, yet also announced his relief to leave. Even after all of this, most co-stars remembered him affectionately for Radar's naivety and magnetism, but for Burghoff, walking away was about holding on to what remained: his family, his health, and yes, serenity. On set, the Alan Alda factor. Alan Alda wasn't merely MASH asterisk as leading man. He became its creative core over time. Beginning as Hawkeye Pierce, he eventually started writing and directing for the show. By the late 70s, once original writers departed, Alda was even acting as producer and creative consultant. His touch made the show more considered and socially conscious than its early frivolous installments. Loretta Swit and Alan had a close relationship on, as well as off, the set. Swit frequently complimented Alda's intelligence and assistance, explaining in interviews that he was a dear friend, nothing like the cynical, bitter Hawkeye. They were close friends long after the shooting ended, a reflection of how well they got along. But not everyone was happy. Some cast members started to feel the show was getting too Alda-centric. This change had its highs and lows. Alda's stronger role enabled the series to deal with serious issues and have more profound emotional journeys. Audiences reacted, and MASH Asterisk became a top-rated, award-winning series renowned for its sophistication. Yet, backstage, that change caused friction. For many cast members, it felt like the balance was gone. What began as a team effort became more and more focused on one character, and that character happened to be played and led creatively by Alda, while Swit remained by his side. Some felt pushed aside, as Hawkeye increasingly became the unofficial center of the show. In the end, Alda's leadership was a blessing in a storm. It added depth and substance, but it reshaped the structure and dynamics of a once close-knit ensemble. Swit's words could not have been more apt. What began as a journey share became a Hawkeye protagonist saga, and for some, that was difficult to accept. What Loretta finally admitted before her death at age 87. Loretta Swit provided sincere and candid insights on why so many of her MASH Asterisk co-stars left the show. Swit assured that MASH Asterisk was not always a breeze. Being part of a predominantly male cast as one of the few females, she confessed that she had to fight for the growth and development of her character. In the earlier seasons, Margaret was basically a one-dimensional, over-the-top character, sexually lusting after Frank Burns and being tricked by Hawkeye and Trapper. But as the years passed, particularly after Larry Linville, Burns' actor, quit, Swit collaborated with producers to make her character more dignified and deep. Executive producer Burt Metcalf even supported this, stating that Swit wasn't alone. Their office also felt it was time for Houlihan to become more human. As for the others who left the show, Swit didn't hold back. She said Wayne Rogers, Trapper John, left for very legitimate reasons, explaining he felt sidelined and underused. He wasn't getting enough screen time, she recalled, adding that he wasn't being exploited fully and knew it. McLean Stevenson, Henry Blake, departed too after season 3 in the hope of getting to do some leading parts. Swit recalled him stating, "I know I'll never be in anything as good as this again, but I simply have to try." Larry Linville departed after 5 years, feeling he had pushed Frank Burns as far as possible. And Gary Burghoff, Radar, quit after season 8, claiming he'd done all that could be done with the character. Swit, however much change affected her and herself, never really thought leaving. But the stress took a toll. Co-stars such as Harry Morgan and Mike Farrell commented that Swit frequently felt outnumbered and was not as forceful as a person like Alan Alda, who had played several roles behind the camera. Morgan even compared that she was scarcely included in the last 7 season scripts and suspected it made her irritable, particularly when she was denied a potential lead role on Cagney, and Lacey due to MASH Asterisk, producers' refusal to release her. In it all, Swit remained true to MASH Asterisk, but she never hesitated to speak the truth about why others didn't. Loretta Swit's personal life and death. Loretta Swit lived a life full of passion both in and out of the limelight. While viewers loved her for her quick wit and fiery personality on TV, her own life was every bit as fascinating, filled with creativity, love, heartache, and fierce activism. Years ago, Loretta dated singer Bill Hudson. Yes, the very same Bill Hudson who was briefly married to Goldie Hawn and who fathered Kate Hudson, but that was a one-day-only affair in the gossip columns. In 1983, she wed actor Dennis Houlihan, and MASH Asterisk fans may even know him. Houlihan guest starred in a single episode as Per Johansson, a Swedish diplomat with a certain flirtation with Swit's character. Real life wasn't quite as scripted, though, and after 12 years of marriage, the couple split up in 1995. In addition to her career as an actress, Loretta was a passionate animal lover and not afraid to speak out about it. She was an outspoken animal rights activist long before such causes were the norm in Hollywood. Throughout her life, she championed many causes to save animals and spoke out against industry and general cruelty. She went vegetarian early in life and pushed it further by going vegan in 1981, which was well ahead of her time. For Loretta, it wasn't a fad. It was a strongly believed principle about kindness and compassion. She also had a creative side of her own that went way beyond the camera. Loretta was devoted to needlepoint, a peaceful, contemplative pastime that brought her happiness. She even authored a book titled A Needlepoint Scrapbook, in which she presented her patterns and personal thoughts. It was another glimpse into her character, considerate, calm, and dedicated to the small things. Loretta Swit died on May 30th, 2025 at 87 at her New York City home. Even though she's no longer here, her legacy endures in the hearts of the fans, in her activism for animal welfare, and in Margaret Houlihan, a role she brought to life with substance, passion, and compassion. Her existence wasn't all about celebrity. It was about being a voice for what she stood for, living purposefully, and leaving behind something other than memories. She left behind meaning. MASH Asterisk was more than just a wartime comedy. It became a cultural touchstone that balanced heartbreak and humor with grace. It dared to challenge the norms of its era, using satire to explore the human cost of conflict, friendship, and survival. Through its 11-season run, the show not only redefined what television could be, but also built a family of characters that audiences felt deeply connected to. Loretta Swit was one of the few constants in that ever-evolving world. Her presence grounded the show through its many changes. She stood as both a fierce woman in a male-dominated environment and a quiet force of emotional nuance. As her co-stars came and went, Swit remained, helping carry the heart of the series all the way to its unforgettable finale. The departures of major cast members mirrored the changes happening behind the scenes and within the characters themselves. As the actors grew, so did their need to move on, creatively and personally. But each exit, no matter how painful, added layers to MASH Asterisk-S. Realism. It wasn't just a show about war. It was a show about change and how people come together, fall apart, and carry on. And due to Swit, they did so with courage and heart. Thanks for joining us on this journey through the unforgettable world of MASH Asterisk and the behind-the-scenes stories that shaped it. Loretta Swit's legacy, along with the departures and decisions of her fellow cast members, remind us that the most iconic shows are often built on both triumph and tension. If you enjoyed this deep exploration, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more stories from classic TV history. Turn on the notifications so you never miss an update. See you in the next one.